And welcome to Star Wars Between a Rock and a Hard Place. Um, we join our young heroes at their home, where they have grown up effectively on the planet of Dantooine. Dantooine itself is a pastoral planet, has a very slight axial tilt, so its seasons are very gentle. As such, it has been over the millennia. Used by different cultures and such to grow crops of various types. In the days of the old republic, it even held a special place in the um, Jedi religion. These days, it's a backwater. It is far off on the edge of the galaxy in an area called the Outer Rim, far away from the main politics of the growing empire. Um, People tend to come to this place to retire, to settle down if they even think about it, or they come to get away from all of that. Um, the time frame we are speaking about is a very tumultuous one. We are about 17 years after the end of the Clone Wars. We There is in the Galactic Holonet news. There have been some recent developments that have occurred that are tied to that. A group calling themselves the Alliance to Restore the Republic, which has been declared a terrorist organization by the Empire, about a month ago, according to the news, hijacked a mining platform called Stardust and used that mining platform to destroy the planet of Alderaan. Now, this is the official story. There are rumors that the Empire themselves destroyed Alderaan because it was well known that the Organa family, the ruling family of the planet, were opposed to Emperor Palpatine and worked against him in the Senate. But once again, those are conspiracy theories. Um, just before that occurred on Dantooine, a group of a very large Imperial task force showed up, asking questions about supposed activities by this rebel alliance, as people have begun calling them. Um, and our two heroes had experienced this group for about a year prior to this, but they at that time had already left. Most that they were a conglomeration of people from all over the galaxy, some seemingly upstanding citizens, and others, well, I'm not sure you'd want any of your valuables left out around them, if you know what I mean. But they were a very exciting group that come into a planet like Dantooine, which for nothing really exciting ever really happened. But since that time, the Empire has decided to leave a small garrison on the planet in a nearby town by the name of, pull it up here. Wait. Nearby town by name of Gutura, which is the only place nearby which has what anyone could possibly call a starport, as in they have a Imperial Customs station and an open field. Um, the garrison has set up shop. They've put up their bivouacs and such around that area, and there's about 150 to 200 Imperial Army personnel that have begun patrolling the area. Um, there's also been a story within the past couple of weeks that this Project Stardust uh, that the Emperor had commissioned as a mining platform was destroyed by those same rebels. Unfortunately, taking the great Grand Moff Tarkin along with it, and several high-ranking Imperial officials. Not to mention literally thousands of engineers and technicians that were assigned to commission this thing. So, um, and of course, once again, some people say that this was a veritable Death Star, if you will. But then again, others just say, that's crazy. That's crazy. So, so we come into our action with this in mind at the small little homestead that Yane who at this moment, being an early morning, is out nearby doing her exercises. She's wearing a long flowing orange outfit that's very loose, allows her to move very well, but preserves her modesty. Um, her salt and pepper hair pulled back into a bun at the nape of her neck as she moves through this very fluid, almost dance-like routine that she does every day to keep herself fit. Um, as we look around the area around her, there is behind her what might seem to be a bit of an eyesore. Several broken down harvester droids, ground effect vehicles, even a couple of speeders have been left in an area not too far away. As the camera pans around her, we see a beautiful ship, a starship that at one time probably gleamed in the sun a golden reflective color, but after years of the exposure to elements and such, that gold has been dulled down. The millions of micro scratches on its surface, making that perfect reflected skin almost a bright yellow, if you will. The sun still catches it just right, and sometimes it flashes. Around it are several buildings made out of Quakecrete. This is a fairly common substance for houses and such, and we see a weather vane sticking up, catching the wind, and a few other, few different devices and such here and there that we may find out at some point what they are, but at this point, we don't really know. As we pan around to this, we see a young man out in front of what looks possibly be a garage, fiddling with some device. Tindrick, why don't you give us a description of what your character looks like?
Tindrick is kind of a leaner man. He sits roughly 6'1". He's in his mid-20s. Uh, he has really short, not quite buzz cut, but it's pretty short, dark hair. One thing everyone always notices about them, first off, is almost every patch of open skin, where sleeves aren't hitting, sometimes up on his face, around his chest, always has at least a couple of fresh burns or singes due to all of his repair work. So it's kind of a trademark that Tin's on his way, because you can either smell the smoke coming off of him, or, oh, where'd you get the new burn at this time? Uh, sorry. Besides that, his skin is pretty tan just from working out in the yard all day, as well as doing the repair on the droids, the bots, the vehicles. He's not really ever inside much unless he's eating or sleeping. The other thing that people notice about him is his blue eyes. They really like to pierce through things, and if you didn't know him, it'd be almost kind of like an unsettling type of look. He doesn't really mean anything by it, but it's really just him looking at you. Um, Rumors abound in their little town and where they live at that Tin can look at an item, look at a piece of electronic, and know exactly where the fault is and exactly how to fix it. So when people say Tin's got that look in his eye, it's usually what's about to get broke or what's about to get fixed.
All right, as we see him tinkering with yet another vehicle of some type. Just beyond that, the camera pans past him just a bit. Past the garage, there's an area that's a little cultivated gardening plot. Several different plants in very neat rows springing up, vibrant greens and yellows and purples and oranges of these different kinds of plants. Within this foliage, we see another figure tending to the garden. In the background, we can hear some kind of singing, possibly from a pop star on a holovox, playing a very jaunty tune. So give us a description of Haish.
Haish is a young uh, humanoid. Um, he's he used to be actually quite pale, but being on Dantooine for as long as they have been, he's actually bronzed up very nicely. Um, he's actually kind of wearing a kind of a cut off sleeve tunic shirt kind of thing that's somewhat stained with sweat, and he's got dirt as he's been all over him as he's been working in the garden. He thinks right now he's got privacy, so his cloak is off, and actually we look close enough, he's actually got a blindfold, customary for his species. He's a Miraluka. And what we see him is he goes over to his Holovox and actually switches the songs, the music off for a bit, and actually goes and sits kind of cross, almost like lotus style, in the middle of this garden, and he just begins meditating. He's got his black hair pulled back into a long queue that goes to about the small of his back. So he takes off his working garden gloves, and he just sits there and quietly meditates as he's just transplanted some as it would be geraniums native to Dantooine from one part of the garden to another, and he's about ready to harvest what would be, I suppose, the analog for like cucumbers and tomatoes once he finishes here. But he just sits quietly and tries and reaches out to the plants around him specifically, just, and has a moment to himself.
While you're reaching yourself out, go ahead and roll me your sense die, Haish. Just 1d6, I believe. And you're muted, by the way.
Okay, whoops, here we go. I got that out of the way. Is that just a regular die, or in this system is that
when you roll
one that
1d6, you always roll the special die.
Oh, so okay.
If you're just rolling one die, you always roll the special die.
Always roll. Oh, so that one may or may not explode. Okay.
Right.
I won.
Okay. So
he just sat down.
That's fine. So yeah, so you're sitting there and you're feeling the sort of the flow of the plants and such around you, and you're very focused on that. In fact, you're focused on that to the point where you don't notice the sound. Tendrick probably does, because the fact he's more tuned in to the sounds and the actions and such of vehicles and machines. It is the sound of a struggling motivator for a speeder of some type. Just a high-pitched, almost ear-splitting whine coming along the. There's a speeder track that runs not too far from your home between the that city of city of Gutura out to a nearby settlement named Yutang, which is basically just like a little trade place where a lot of the local farmers come together to trade produce and bad gossip. But it's coming from the direction of Gutura, and as you look up, you see over the waving grasses and such around the area, you see a little bit of smoke rising up as this thing seems to be getting closer. You also see that Yane stopped her morning exercises and is looking that way. The droid LE1TH comes walking out of the garage and looks over and says, "Tendrick, what's that horrible noise? Did you break something again?"
No, that wasn't me. Will break my foot off in someone's ass. They keep driving that thing though.
Someone's
So-
power steering needs to be fixed. I'm glad I'm not listening.
Well, as it gets closer, it becomes impossible to ignore. So eventually, it does cut through your meditation there, Haish, and you
He
even
just
hear it.
groans.
This vehicle resolves itself as a pretty standard land speeder coming up the trackway. It's leaking smoke from one of its primary motivators, and it actually sort of casts off to the left just a little bit. It's not quite running flat, and it's sort of weaving back and forth. About 50 yards before it gets to what will be your guys' driveway, if you had one, you see it veer off into the foliage on the side of the track, and you hear the unmistakable bam of metal striking stone, and more smoke pours up out of the area there.
I'm assuming I finally hear the bang.
Oh yeah, you heard the whine as it got a little bit too close, and it pulled your attention out of what you were doing.
Quick question for like scene and
Mhm.
place and location. I'm in the back 40. They're in the front yard near the garage.
Well, the plot is just off to the side of the garage.
Oh, so I'm
yeah,
out of
you're fairly close.
out
Yeah, I
of
mean you're
earshot. Actually, excuse me, eye shot, line of sight.
Yeah.
but-
there's probably like a little privacy fence set up around the area, so you wouldn't necessarily be able to see the garden as you pass by at a speeder. So, but you can
Your
definitely hear
area
it.
is enclosed, but you're in basically.
Yeah, the back side of it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm in hollering distance.
Oh yeah.
As soon as I hear the bang, he jumps up, throws on his cloak, and make sure his personal effects are all in order, and then hood up.
Okay. Yane, of course, she saw the whole thing too. She looks back to Tendrick and says, get your equipment, Tendrick. We'll see if someone's hurt. And she starts just sprinting that way.
Yeah, Tin would he wouldn't be in a horrible rush, because to him it's like, oh great, here we go. Some moron who shouldn't be able to even be behind a speeder is screwing stuff up again. So he's actually just going to calmly go get his gear, get his repair kits, and just almost saunter down toward where this event is happening.
Haish will actually walk over with a kind of like what would be a big ass spade in his hand.
Okay.
And he'll say, Tin, what do you have an appointment this morning?
No, this one's unexpected.
If Haish had eyes, he would roll them, but he kind of just like does this customary which is kind of like a kind of like a head cock, which is the same thing for him. But
Right.
he's like, all right, do you need me?
Oh, I don't know how bad it is yet. It probably sounded worse than it actually is.
I'll
I'm
come
welcome to tag
anyway.
along just in case. Yeah.
I'll come anyway.
Okay. All right. So as
Menacing with a shovel behind you.
as I said, you see Yane heading down the track there, and as you guys come following after, when she gets there, you see her look over to the area where the foliage has been disturbed, and she waves you on, almost as if hurry up. When you get there, you see that this speeder has the foliage itself is hidden pretty large boulder, something pretty common on this part of Dantooine. And it's slammed into that rock, and the vehicle itself is pretty crumpled in the front. But the thing that immediately Tendrick notices is the motivator that was smoking. It's got carbon scoring on it, as if maybe it was shot at. And there is a lady hanging out of the side of the speeder, apparently knocked out.
What do I see of her aura? Can I actually see from here, or
Yeah, well, what you can see of her aura is it's fairly, uh, it's flickering as if she's hurt,
she's
not
dying?
feeling very, very well, or possibly even dying.
Oh,
But the times when it flickers strongly. It's very strong. So
hey,
this
she'll
is a
actually jog
person.
over at that point.
Okay, this is a person you might consider a very strong-willed individual. Um, this when you get to her, she is she appears to be human. She has very dark skin. She's dressed in uh, clothes that at some point might have been considered good, high quality clothes, but they've obviously been lived in for a while. There's the usual wear and tear that you would see of someone um, uh, who has traveled quite a bit. A lot of refugees, when you've seen them occasionally show up here, are dressed very similar to this. Um, go ahead and, if you would, make me a perception check. If you happen to have investigation, you can use that skill. So since you're the first one there, Haish, or you're going over there.
So that is, I just have 2 die in perception. I don't have investigation though.
Right. So you roll your 2 die. Remember, make sure one of those is the
With-
special
with-
die.
Oh, okay. So, all right, 2 die total. 1 die is the special die. 7.
Okay. With a 7, you when you get there, you see that she is breathing.
Good.
There is in the seat next to her, the speeder, there is tumbled down into the floor is some kind of a case. Could be like a case for like documents, or it could be some kind of a device or something inside of a case or whatever. But it's definitely it's something that was put in there. It wasn't part of the speeder. Her, as you get right up onto her and see her, you see a very familiar shape hanging from a belt clip, a shape that you actually have one of your own, long, cylindrical, about a third of a meter long, give or take.
Can I? Well, Hayes knows exactly what he's looking at. Can I actually use my telekinesis and actually bring it to my hand?
You can try rolling your yeah. You can roll your that's under control, I believe, isn't it? No,
Is
sorry,
alter. Alter is
So you use your
outside
alter
of me.
die.
Alter die. So I have two
Yep.
2 grades in the alter. Is that
Yes, 2 dice.
2 dice here? So if the special die rolls a 6, does that explode then?
Yep, you roll it again. Yes.
I got a 6 and a 1, so
Okay. So well, the
13?
one.
6, 6, 1.
Okay. So that gives you 13. So you're able to contact it with through the force and bring it to your hand. As you do, or as you go to do that, and it starts lifting up, her hand shoots up and grabs it before it gets to you, and she looks over at you. Her eyes have a deep, piercing look about them as she apparently gazes into yours. Oh, let's see. Okay. And you feel almost like you're opened up like a book. And you see memories flashing before your eyes extremely, extremely fast. And she says, "I don't think you're ready for a real lightsaber, youngling." And then she just passes out.
Hang on.
Do I hear that?
Yes. Yes, you hear that.
You probably tried. You probably saw me try lifting her lightsaber.
Yeah, as I said, you see her grab the lightsaber. It's obviously a lightsaber. You've seen one before. It's a bit different from the one that the Haish has. And I don't know if you decided you wanted to have one either. Did you want to have one? Okay.
No,
It's
I
different
wasn't
than
gonna have one.
Haitians,
Haish'll just
but it's
walk
definitely
over
a
and
lightsaber.
she goes up on his shoulder then. If I can
Okay.
lift her.
Oh yeah, you can. She's a she, I mean, you can tell as you lift her up, this woman has she's very athletic. Yanni comes over and actually sort of helps you, and she checks her over. And she tells you, be careful with her. You know, she may have a back injury. You don't want to move her too much. If she does, try to stabilize her.
She's got a
And
case
then
in the foot. Look. And I
and
point to
then
it.
she yells up, Leith, which is what she calls the droid, bring the stretcher over. And they as you see him start moving, coming your way with a stretcher, the scene itself fades out. We'll fade back in where Yane has brought her into your home, into one of the buildings outside the ship, not the inner workings of the ship itself, and has her laying on a cot. Her lightsaber is still clenched with a death grip in her hand. Yane is checking her for wounds. She has a pretty nasty bruise on her forehead where she hit the dash. But other than that, she doesn't seem to have any major problems. So she has a cloth with some warm water and some sweet smelling herbs in it, and she is cleaning the lady's forehead. And her eyes sort of start flickering open as she looks up, and they focus on you. And
Which you?
well, whoever's in the room, she just sort of looks around the room with her eyes.
I'm sitting on a stool probably near where she is. Like she can reach out and touch me if she wanted.
Okay. She looks around the room. It's, as I said, the room itself is it's sparsely furnished, but everything in there is of decent quality. If rough. In some cases, it's things you guys have cobbled together, but it's definitely a home. It's definitely not squalid. And her eyes, as she looks around the room, falls upon Haish, and she says,
"How's your head?"
It throbs. She goes to sit up, and Yane puts her hand on her shoulder. Says, "Oh no, not yet. Rest for a bit. You'll need you've took a nasty blow to the head." And she looks up at her and says, "Thank you." And then her eyes go back over to Haish, and she says, "How did you wind up on Dantooine, youngling?" At that, you see Yane do something. Yane has a holdout blaster that she always sort of keeps on her. Usually you don't see her messing with it, except about once a month or so she takes out and cleans it properly. She's got it under sort of hidden, but both of you can see that it's pointing towards this woman.
Yeah, she
she
moves her eyes.
The eyes she's giving this woman are very concerned. And she sort of glances over towards you to see what your reaction is to her calling you that and asking that question.
I made my way here with Tindrick.
She glances over at Tindrick there, and you feel almost like someone's brushing your face, and you see memories running through your mind. She's another one.
How
and
much
as she
older
says,
am I than Tindrick again? I'm 26.
Yeah, I think you were like 3 or 4 years.
3 years older than him. Okay.
So, as she says another one, you see Yane's hand moves a little bit more, and she brings the blaster up so it's obviously visible. And she says, "Lady, you need to explain your use of the word youngling very, very carefully." And at that, looks up at Yane, and she says, "My name's Stas Ali." And with that, Yane looks down at her and says, "Stas." I will real quick. Okay. She said, "I've been I've been trying to find younglings for the past, well, decade that were scattered across the galaxy. We found a few and brought them together, but I never thought I'd find them on Dantooine of all places. And you see, I look down to her and she says, "There's a reason for that. No one looks to Dantooine for anything."
I kind of,
Stop.
I'm not looking at
Mhm.
Yane, but she can see the expression is, I absolutely agree. This is why we're here. Haysh has very much adopted her philosophy of, I like quiet too. Get off my goddamn lawn.
Okay. So yeah, she says, "Actually, I bring word from someone, actually, if you're who I think you are." She says, "I bring word from Isla."
Hey,
That name comes to mind because she was one of the ones who was helping train you at the academy, at the academy, at the temple. She was a Twi'lek. You thought she had died, but
Sakura.
mhm, yes, she says.
I actually oh my god, this guy actually hates me. Haysh actually jumps and grabs her by the front of her tunic. Tell me where the fuck she is. God damn. I'm kind of shake her like you.
Tin will
Yeah.
Tin will walk up and pull Haysh back off of her.
Mhm. Okay.
Settle your shit. Like finger in his face. Settle your shit.
Excuse me.
She
Put you in timeout.
He smooth his tunic and just sits back down.
Stas sort of sits up with that. She reacted to you lunging forward, almost as if she expected you to. And she sits up, and at this point now you have Yane with the blaster openly out, and she looks over her and says, "Lady Yane, there's no need for that. I do not bring harm to you or these two." And Yane sort of looks at her. She's still very suspicious. She's you know now at this point she has no force powers of her own, but she has a deep abiding affection for orphans. You've known that for a long time, and she's sort of adopted the two of you almost like a mother since you were left here. And she Stas looks at the two of you, and she says, "You've heard of, I'm sure you've heard of the great calamity that occurred about a standard month ago with the destruction of the Death Star."
My gaze kind of reaches, like it kind of scans the room, and Haysh nods. Yeah, it's all over the news.
Of course. Well, shortly after that event, we had thought, those of us who had been associated with the Rebel Alliance, had thought that we had scored a major victory and actually brought down that vile Sith Darth Vader, but it seems he escaped. And something that occurred at that time caused him to redouble his efforts of searching for Jedi, and especially younglings who had escaped the purge. So we've been heading to places where younglings had been sent, or where the Force led us. In this case, the Force led us here because Isla thought that the two of you would have moved on by now. In fact, she looks over at Yane and says, in fact, she said she hasn't even spoken with you in over 10 standard years.
I kind of shoot an accusatorial, like, it's not a dirty look, but it's a stern one at Yane. and because this is news to Haish,
Yeah.
and he kind of gives her this, you what knew what now? He doesn't say anything, but that's his expression.
Yane looks at you and says, "Yes, there was a time when she would check up on you boys when you were younger, but she never wanted to speak with you directly. She was going through her own troubles at the time. She looks over at Stas and says, "Is she still going through those troubles?" And Stas sort of nods her head just a little bit. She still has her troubles, but they're not. But she's overcome much of it. So the darkness recedes from her now, but it threatens to come back at any moment. Obviously, and she looks back at the two of you and says, "She never wanted to leave you alone here. She eventually wanted to bring you back into the fold and teach you and train you, but it became so difficult to avoid the Inquisitors and the things she had to do. Well, she almost fell to the dark side herself. So as such, the good in her understood that she did not want to corrupt you boys with that. So, but at this point, it's becoming very, very dangerous here on Dantooine, with the Imperial garrison nearby, and apparently, the word is that there will be a sector guard established here in the the next few weeks. We need to get you boys further away from civilization or even off planet.
Hayes just he shoots a look to Tindrick, as he has honestly been his battle brother for ages now, and I just for the sake of character knowledge, Yane kind of stays out of our way, right? I mean, she's obviously the matron of the household, but we're adults. We can come and go as we please. Is that true, or is there kind of like a curfew kind of rule thing living at mom's house?
There's always been sort of an understanding that if you're going to be out after dark, you let her know before. But you're basically allowed to come and go as you please now. But as far as being gone for long times and such, she's never really liked that, and she's never liked you boys staying in town overnight. Just because, as has always been said, there are always eyes looking, and they look more closely at places with more civilization.
So yeah, that's Hayes just gives Tindrick a look like, do you think we can move?
Okay. You see Yanni, she stands up as you guys are talking. Go ahead.
I say, Tindrick, by this time, he's actually pulled out a deck of cards and he's just idly shuffling it. That's kind of the thing he does when he's not, when he doesn't have a wrench or a torch in his hand. He'll look at Hayes and give kind of like a half shrug. I work with machines, not people. I mean,
okay.
We're willing to leave, but we're a package deal, and Hayes will simply default to Tindrick and himself, and not because they were abandoned. They were quite literally foundlings. He doesn't give a shit about anybody else.
So Yane is actually at this point walked over to the front, and she looks out through one of the windows and looks back and says, "How did your speeder get damaged?" And she said that was I was attacked on the road by bandits. And Yanni sort of narrows her eyes, looks at her and says, "Bandits or Imperials?" And she said, "Bandits. There was a group of about a dozen of them that tried to run me down, and they had one of the mounted blasters on top of their speeder, and they tried to take my engines out, but I was able to avoid them." she said, and Yanni sort of looks at her and says, if you brought danger to this place, I can tell you, you'll be the first one to die.
There's a
Yeah.
difference between there's a difference between like a blaster pistol we would find here and Imperial blasters, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely a difference. Yeah. The
Would
stuff you
there
have
be a
here
difference
is,
in the damage taken?
it's possible. Yeah.
Or does a blaster bolt just look
Um,
like a blaster bolt on a speeder?
Here, let me ask you this. Can I use my knowledge skill to actually
Mhm.
well, shit, I'm actually playing a blind guy. Never mind. Can I actually tell how accurate the carbon scoring on her vessel was?
You wouldn't necessarily be able to see it because it said you're blind.
Mhm.
Pendrick definitely would have noticed it. So if you'll do me a
That's why I'm asking.
or either you do knowledge, or you can do a repair. If you have a repair skill you want to use, like say speeder repair.
I think we said speeders were underneath hover vehicle repair.
Yes, hover vehicle. Yes.
Look at that.
So if you have that, you can roll that. Yeah.
5 dice.
Oh my god. Nice.
Oh, 4 in technical and then 1 actually in vehicle repair.
Yes.
Hell yeah. Yeah, Heish is leveling this new woman with this glare that really does back up Yanni's threat.
Yeah.
I could cut her down right here if I really wanted to, or I'd try to.
My special one exploded, so I got a 27.
Okay. So you know that the specific shot that shot had been targeted at was the person who fired the blaster had to know where to shoot at first off. They weren't extremely accurate because they missed what they were shooting at. They missed the primary motivator. They damaged it, but had it been just a couple centimeters over to the right, they would have taken it completely out. Now you've seen stuff like this from bandits before, because a lot of the bandits in the area aren't going for the people; they're going for the equipment. They want to take it, they want to salvage it, they want to fix it up and then turn around and resell it. The people, there's not really a market for people on Dantooine. There's not really a slavery type situation here. But a lot of times people just wind up basically being buried out in a field. So it doesn't look like the kind of precision you would expect from Imperials. It looks more like the kind of damage you would have expected from a bandit, but a bandit that knew what they were doing. So
Yeah. So as they're doing the banter back and forth of, oh, was it bandits, was it Imperials? Tin would kind of just give her a level gaze, kind of like everyone else has been doing. And then he would just look over at Yanni and he would just nod his head as if saying, yes, her story checks out. Because Yanni would know by now that while they were taking care of the person, he'd be taking care of the vehicle.
okay.
So
Okay.
he would know.
So Yanni says, describe the group that attacked you. And she said, well, there was one group, there was one larger speeder, a speeder truck. That was the one that had the gun mounted on its bed. And there were 3 swoops. And when they give that description there, that sounds like one of the gangs that runs the sort of the area around here. Because of the fact that you're technically in an outlaw territory, they mainly target outsiders, and their leader is a guy named Marku. I'll put it in the chat here real quick. And Marku is a Celestin. And he said he's a junk runner. He likes he basically likes to find good high quality vehicles and stuff like that. And he's not really scrupulous about who he gets it from, as long as they're outsiders. But they're sort of protective of locals. But one of the things about Marku is that even though he's protective of locals, his loyalty can easily be bought. Occasionally, some people have had disputes and they've hired Marku to settle them for them. So, as far as could it have been just a regular attack on this for the vehicle? Yeah. Could it have been something more? Possibly. So. So, at this point, the sun is about at its zenith. It's about midday, and Yanni stands there for a few moments, looking out the window, and she says, "Well, we can't sit here and just be worried. You boys hungry?"
No, I'm gonna go pack my things.
Okay.
And
So,
Hayes
I'll
actually
pack
leaves
us a
the scene.
lunch. Okay. She said, "I'll pack us a lunch then." So where are you going to pack your things at? Are you gonna?
He's probably
take
going to
things
go to his room and get at, like, he's got a well-worn but well-maintained probably gardening tool belt, trowel, hoe, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But grab that. Do we have a homestead? Is that what
Yeah.
we're in? We're not
Yeah,
actually
basically.
in the ship.
Yeah, the ship you probably still have rooms in the ship if you want to, but they're probably not used as much anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
the homestead at Quikrete is probably where you guys actually live.
Okay. He grabs his things probably over the next hour and puts them in his cabin in the ship.
Okay. So what are you gonna be doing that time there, Tendrick?
Well, Yanni says, "Are you hungry?" And he's kind of always hungry, so
Okay.
he's gonna get some grub.
Yeah, she'll put a quick meal together, and she'll also start taking some of the shelf stable stuff and putting them in baskets and such, and things that can be transported easily, and starts gathering them together. And
how screwed was her speeder? Because I would have plugged in like the diagnostic pad and like whenever like the whole
Yep.
thing.
The primary motivator was damaged, but it probably could just use a couple of replacement parts to get it back up and running again. Its anti-grav matrix was also damaged. That's why it was sort of listing off to one side. That one shot, and it was just one shot, by the way. It wasn't a multiple shots, just one. Penetrated pretty deeply into the hull of the speeder. But you could probably in a couple of days get it back get it back running, just good as new. So now the front end, there's cosmetic damage to the front where it ran into the rock, but every good speeder needs a little bit of character, as they say. But
rustic, it was supposed to be that way.
Yeah. So as you're getting your stuff together, Leith announces in the room, because he's actually been tapped into the there's actually a sensor array that Yane made sure was in the homestead. It's primarily for like weather and stuff, but it can be used for other things as well. He's been plugged into that since you guys came inside, and he says, "Mistress Yane, there are at least 3 vehicles approaching. Look to be speeders." And she's like, "Okay, I'll go outside and meet them." And should alert the young, well, obviously Master Tendrick is here. Should alert Master Hayes. And she says, "Yes,
He
let him know."
like surprises, you know this.
Okay. So he sends a signal to your comm, which is basically like a little hand, think of like a cell phone, basically.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Master Hayes, there are some vehicles approaching. Be advised."
How many?
3.
I'll be right in.
Okay. Yane, when as you guys are getting together, she sort of tidies stuff up and such, and she puts her holdout blaster away, And she looks over at Stas and says, "You should hide in the back room there." And she sends her back into one of the storage rooms. As the vehicles pull up, it is an Imperial patrol patrol at the moment. It's a vehicle, which is basically like it's sort of boxy. It's not really like an assault vehicle. It's a transport, but think of it like a police van. And there are two guys dressed as Imperial Army scouts on speeder bikes that are flanking it. They pull in to the front area, and a fellow steps out. He's dressed in a lieutenant's uniform, and he comes walking over toward the house. So Yane looks back at the two of you, and she says, "I'll talk to him." And she steps out. She steps outside and says, "Hello." So you were holding your finger up there, Haish?
Can I quick glance outside, actually see their Imperial Army,
Yes.
and then actually go, well, shit, and then duck back into the back, because he's got to hide too. I mean, as a Miraluka, he's yeah.
Okay. So you wind up back in the storage area where Stas is hiding.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of go back to Tinker and stuff, like he's not even skipping a beat in this day.
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of glare at her when I sit down on a crate.
So in that case, you won't be able to actually hear Haish, but Tendrick would be able to hear the conversation out front. And she basically goes out and she says hello, and he asks if she's the mistress of the establishment, and she says yes. And she said, "Do you have is anyone else lives here?" She said, "My two sons are here. One is inside; he's a tinkerer. The other one's out in the fields." And you can actually see through the window there. You see Lieutenant Pastor, and he sees you inside, and he does a motion with his hand, and the speeders speed off, and you can sort of see him turn behind your building. And the lieutenant says, "Ma'am, there's been a report of a fugitive that fled this direction. We've noticed. I noticed up the trackway there that there is evidence of a vehicle going off the track." And she says, "Yes, it happened this morning. We did help her. It was a young lady, dark-skinned human." And he says, "Yeah, that fits the description." She said, "Well, we got her fixed up. My son Tendrick, he you can ask anyone in town, he's a whiz when it comes to fixing things. He got her back on the track, in no time, and she left." And the lieutenant sort of nods. And in the back where you guys are, you're sitting there with Stas, and she gets a faraway look in her eye.
Can I feel that on her?
You feel a pressure.
What are you doing?
I am trying to sense their intentions. And she said, she holds her hand out and she's, "Try this." She says, "Take it, center yourself, calm your breathing, and just reach out with your senses."
That's 2 die again.
Yes. Is that sense? Well, actually,
no, excuse me. Sense is 1, Alter is 2, Control is 0.
Sense is 1. Yeah.
5.
Okay. You're able to sort of piggyback on what she's doing. You can sort of feel what she's doing. She's actually reaching out and touching their minds. It feels almost like what she did to you earlier, but you're seeing it from a different perspective this time. It's this. She's not like diving deep into their minds. She's sort of reading like almost the way you read auras around people. She's using the force to read their surface thoughts.
I see.
And sort of getting an idea of, are they on high alert? And you feel there are 2 men inside the transport. One's a driver, one's a gunner. They're bored.
So this probably just seems like another day on a routine patrol for them.
Yeah. The lieutenant is young. You get the feeling that he is very He's not been out of the academy for very long, and he's trying to prove himself. He's trying to make his mark.
Fair.
Further afield, barely still sense them, but the two scouts, they're almost amused. That you get to, you can't get the specific reason why you think they're amused, but there's something about what they're doing that's amusing them. Either they think it's funny or they're just having a lark or something. You're not really sure exactly.
Hayes kind of mutters, "You better not be running over my tomato plants." Actually, that just slides right out of him.
She sort of smiles a bit. You can also, by the way, you can feel Tendrick and his sort of. I mean, how would you describe what he's just sort of his surface feelings right now?
For Tendrick? Oh,
Yeah.
let's see. How can I do this without sounding like a complete ass?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they messed with a little bit of training, and he's dealt with Hayes enough that
Yeah.
surface thoughts are not always a good thing to have.
Right.
So with just her being here, with Stas being here,
Mm-hmm.
and then on top of everything else, he is literally just calling to mind his training stuff. So surface thoughts, they're probably literally just seeing him going through training manuals.
Okay.
Like, this coupler goes here. This part fixes this. It's kind of like how someone like a mathematician would go through prime numbers.
Okay. So
You
he's
keep
going
what you're
through how
actually-
things
You
go together.
you keep what you're actually doing deeper,
Mhm.
while your brain is just portraying the automatic stuff.
Okay. So you get that off of him. Now, off of Yane, you get a serious, deep concern, but you also get this really deep pool of it's a calm that's almost scary.
Yeah, she's kind of zens out.
It's that you've and actually you even get a reaction from Stas from this. And she reacts, that's a calm that's similar to a Jedi Knight getting ready to go into combat. So she's had training of some type.
Yeah, that's Mom.
Where is she from?
She's from Naboo.
Naboo. Ah,
Yeah.
the ship makes sense now.
Oh, that's enough questions from you until we know what side you're on.
She nods. She says, "I'm on your side." So,
That remains to be seen.
okay.
Clearly, Hayes is very
yeah.
fucking agitated. Like, there's
So
an actual Jedi here and the Empire in one day. Not happy.
So yeah, so this lieutenant said there's a back and forth exchange with him and Yane, and after a few minutes, it seems like he has this he has this look on his face as if he can't find a way to prove that she's lying, but he doesn't necessarily take what she's saying as the perfect 100% truth. Obviously, he doesn't 100% believe her, but you guys feel, you see them, but the you guys in the back feel the two speeders come back up, and they say there's no one out there. And he looks at her and says, "I thought you said one of your sons was out in the field." And he said, "Well, I thought he was. He may have went into town for all I know." So he's older. He can go where he wants. There's a young girl up the road. He had a dalliance with. He's with her. And the lieutenant sort of tilts his head and he says, when he comes back, I'll be back through. I want to meet this young man." He looks into the window and sees Tendrick, and he starts to walk that way. And one of the speeder bike officers says, "What are you doing, sir?" He says, "I want to talk to that young man." He says, "That's Tendrick." He's like, "Yes, that's what she said." He says, "Trust me, that he's the guy we bring speeder bikes to when they're acting out of whack." And the fellow looks back at him and says, "Aren't you supposed to take this motor pool?" He's like, "There's no motor pool on this planet. He's the closest thing to motor pool we have."
I am the motor pool.
The lieutenant shakes, and yeah, they have brought things to you in the past couple of weeks at least. And you see a look pass between Yane and one of the officers on the bikes, sort of almost like a nod. And the lieutenant looks back at the fellow and says, "Well, if you've been helping us with our vehicles, the young man has at least, then I guess you're okay." And you see both of the speeder bike guys nod. Yeah, they are. And he gets back into the vehicle, and they tie off down the road. So,
Okay.
you guys feel them recede.
So as they're probably packing up, I'm
Yeah.
peeking out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you hear the sound of the of the big Imperial speeder revving up as it's about to head off. So it makes the whole building shake a little bit.
Heysel wait till they get off the driveway, turn left down that road, get out of sight, and come outside.
Okay.
With a washcloth in his hand, like he'd just come in from the fields to.
Yeah. Okay. Yane comes in, and she looks over at Stas with that look, and she says, "They're already looking for you."
That was quick. Maybe a little too much stank on that.
Yeah.
Statement
She nods. She says, "Well, for all I know, those bandits could have been working with the Imperials, which is possibly the case too. So, that ship, does it work?" And Yane looks over at Tendrick and says, "Of course it does."
Trying to say something I didn't have my hands on doesn't work.
Yeah. It seems fueled up.
He smiles, and he's kind of like smiling in. Really, okay. She doesn't know us at all. He actually looks at Tendrick. She doesn't know us. She doesn't know us at all.
No. So she says, "Well, I guess we should probably at some point get that thing prepped and ready to fly. It's taking about an hour to prep it because it's been powered down for so long. You got to bring its systems up one by one to get them to make sure they're actually in proper order. Because even though, yes, of course it's in flying operation, it hasn't actually flown in over a decade.
Okay.
So it's going to take a bit of time to get it started up, but."
With that being said, I would actually turn to Leith and just give him the head nod toward the ship. Start diagnostics.
Yes, sir. He goes and heads up the front door and heads toward the ship. You see the gangway come down and him go up inside, and he's probably heading back to the engineering section in the back to start the prep work on getting the reactor fired up and all that. In the meantime, in the background, you've had the Holovox has been sort of playing quietly. You hear it cut in with a news announcement saying that there is that the Imperial the Empire is looking for a fugitive that has been spotted in the area. They give a description of Stas, and they say that she is she's wanted at the highest levels.
And
Stas at that goes
highest levels. He kind of looks at her.
Stas shakes her head and says, "I was afraid my presence here would be detected by someone else. I don't know. They may have been closer to you than I thought."
He just kind of looks at Tendrick and kind of gives him this just. Are you hearing this? This morning, I was getting my vegetables, and you come in. He turns back to Stas, and now on my front lawn, again, he's kind of like he's the lord of his, like, what he sees. Technically, it's Yane's house, but it's my front lawn. Being the young man that he is, and I had him. Put an Imperial patrol on my front lawn, and now you think you're coming with us.
Well, I could.
Yane doesn't want to go anywhere. As far
I,
he actually looks at her. As far as I'm aware, Yana is quite comfortable here.
I am. But if you boys are in danger and it's we need to, if we need to move, then I'll go with you. Or she looks over at Stas and says, "We could stay behind and be a distraction while you two get away." It really depends on how serious this situation is. And she looks at Stas and says, "How serious is the situation?"
Yeah, you're explaining yourself.
She says, "Well, as I told you, I am one of a few, because there aren't many of us left, who have been trying to locate younglings from this part of the galaxy.
Where
There
I'm
were
going to stop you
several.
right there. I don't know why you think that Tindrick and I are even part of that group.
You were
We
younglings.
we were left behind. We're not Jedi.
Yes. No, but you began the training.
That may be the case, but
You obviously have an ability with the Force. I suspect Tindrick does too, though his may be more subtle than yours.
that is
Because you were able
our
to
information
sense
and
with me.
business to share.
It is, that's correct. But there are those who would seek those who have the abilities as you do in the Empire. Now they're twist them to the evil aims of the Empire or remove you as a possible obstacle in the future.
Hey, we're doing this right here,
Flat out
Mike.
says it.
That's totally fine. He just looks over at Tindrick and kind of just says with this, I'm not entirely sure that the Empire is a horrible thing. And I've stayed out of its way. I have worked. I have been gainfully employed, and so as my brother here. And until this morning, we've had no issues.
And you probably would have continued having no issues, except for what happened a standard month ago when the rebels destroyed the Death Star.
We're not
Apparently,
rebels.
no, you're not.
It
But
was actually rather interesting. It looks back at Yana and Tindrick. It's actually a rather interesting couple weeks on the HoloNet, I'll tell you that.
well, what hasn't been widely publicized in the HoloNet is the fact that General Kenobi, who had thought to have died in the Clone Wars or at the end of the Clone Wars, turned up as part of this Rebel Alliance and himself wound up dying on that station. And apparently he had a student. At least that's what the well, those of us who have connections to the Force have come to understand. And because of that, the Emperor and Darth Vader have stepped up their searching for those who have a talent with the Force, those who have had some kind of training, even though it may have been basic training as a young Padawan or a youngling. So they're going to find you in the at some point. He may not be one of them, but one of the Inquisitors will. The last I heard, that, and the reason why I'm thinking that they may be looking for they may be looking for you is because of who is shown back up again.
And you're referring to the late General Kenobi.
Yes, if he had any other connections.
Well, may the Force keep him. But I have I sense he kind of, it's not a defeated look, but it's kind of an acceptance look on his face. I mean, his Yana and Tindrick will see this. I have since moved on.
Okay. I can understand.
Out of curiosity, Emperor,
Yes.
With Tendrick dealing with the Imperials repairing and whatnot, and probably also just talking to them, has he seen any of the harsher sides of their judgment? I.e., the whole "this is our way, either conform to it or suffer the consequences"?
Over the past month or so, yes. Prior to that, I mean, really the only Imperials you had on planet was there was a customs officer and a couple of Imperial police, basically, over at the spaceport, and it was just it was that's right. Thank you for reminding me of that, Rafe. There's been a little bit of that, but it was never like a big deal.
Mhm.
But in the past month, um, the when that one fleet showed up, and they started going through the old place where the old mine was, and they started asking a lot of people a lot of questions of people. Um, then you saw them acting as if they own the place. Anyone who basically talked back to them wind up arrested at the least. There were a couple of situations, at least, where you've heard stories from other people, of the neighbors and such around the area, where they actually went in and actually killed people. In some cases, just for being obstinate. So, um, as Hayes said, the empire itself might not necessarily be as a whole a bad thing, but there's obviously some people in the empire who are probably bad people.
Right. So,
So,
The only
but
thing
there's
that I want
basically,
to know from you, Stas,
Mhm.
what happened to Jedi Master Swan?
I can't tell you anything for sure
Why?
because I have not had any direct contact with her.
What have you know? What have you
the
heard then?
the rumors are that she is alive, although we thought that she had died.
Oh, well, we thought Kenobi died, but
That's true.
he was alive,
That's
evidently.
that's why I'm of the opinion that these rumors might be more truth than fiction. If that's the case, then she may. It's possible that a couple of years ago she was seen as close as Ord Mantell.
Kind of dawns on him as he looks at Yone. That's really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, it's just with a decent hyperdrive, it's just a couple of days away.
I was actually thinking Malastare or Nar Shaddaa, but
So there have been rumors of different Jedi popping up all over the galaxy here and there. Many of like myself have chased stories only to find out that either they were false stories planted to lure us in. A few of us have died that way, or they were just someone saw a local magic show and mistook basic, simple illusions for actual force powers. You know, a couple of times I've run across an actual Jedi or someone who claims to have been a Jedi who had a connection to the Force. You're the first who I've actually met that I could reasonably say had any kind of training because I saw it in you.
well,
It wasn't much, but you were younglings and you somehow survived the purge.
he kind
I'd
of
like to hear that
gets
story
this
from
this uncomfortable look, like he's remembering making it out, but barely. And he kind of shoots Tindrick a rather, maybe a little overprotective big brother look. But no, I'm not a Jedi. But Ord Mantell might be a decent place for us to hold up for a few days and then move on to something else.
well, brother, here's the other problem.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're not a Jedi. You know you're not a Jedi.
Yeah, but that's hardly the story now, isn't it?
They don't know you're not a Jedi.
Well,
And I've heard some pretty bad rumors as of late.
I'll have to say goodbye to Shayla before we leave, because that little farm girl is going to be pissed if we disappear.
You know, you may just be putting her at danger by talking to her, Yane says.
Well, I suppose. She liked Tindrick better, though.
Well, of course.
Well, I mean, look at him. I mean,
I mean,
anyway, I'm gathering my things. Tindrick, gather your things, and we will be gone by sunset.
okay. So as you guys are gathering your things, a couple hours later, you hear as you're taking stuff out of the ship, you hear, and I actually almost more feel than hear, a boom off in the distance. Not towards the spaceport, which occasionally you guys are used to hearing that, because occasionally as ships enter the atmosphere, they'll come in and make a sonic boom. But this is more like the boom that you hear from something going up, something blowing up.
Oh shit!
And
Hayes comes charging down the loading ramp.
This is more towards Utang, which is the small little settlement where they basically like a little farmer's market up the track from you guys. And it doesn't take long before you start to see the black smoke rising of something. So, and
that girl I just mentioned, where is her house in relationship to us and that farmer's market?
Well, there's little settlements sort of scattered all over the place.
Yeah.
That settlement is like a little central hub between all these different settlements around the area.
Oh,
so yeah. Now, could she have been in that little settlement at the time? Possibly. She'd like to go in there to buy. They would her family basically raised turnips.
Oh.
And she would trade them for different. Go into town to trade them, and she occasionally would work the stall in town for the family at the market. So it's possible. You know?
Yeah, Hayes just it looks at Tinder. Do we check this out or do we leave? Well, how many hours has passed?
It's been about 3 hours at this point. The ship itself could be lifted off now if you needed to.
Oh, well, Hayes is busy transplanting his garden into one of the bigger rooms.
I can't fix that. I'm not going to check.
Yane, do you still have that beaten up swoop?
We do. You're wanting to go look, aren't you?
I'm not going, but I'll look.
You want to go see?
Well.
That's what Yane's saying. And she sort of has this look on her. Well, she has this expression. The way she's holding herself is like, of course she wants to go.
She knows that Hayes is a man of action.
Mm-hmm.
Truth, it's a little bit more boastful for a Jedi than a Jedi than it should be. We'll put it that way.
Oh yeah. And she looks at over at Tindrick and Stas looks over at Tindrick and you two and Yane, and she said, "If you want to go, I'll go with you."
He still doesn't trust her. He honestly thinks she's a liability. Oh my god, he just ignores her and gets I'm playing a dick. He goes and gets that swoop out of one of the garages and his binocs and whatever he has for like a day pack is EDC, and he'll go have a check. He won't go there, but he'll be on like binocular range.
Okay, she's gonna look further into what's going on. Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, what you'll see is you get to a little, because most of Dantooine looks flat, but it's actually gently rolling hills. So you come up to some of the taller hills you see further out and such, and you see as you get to the nearest hill, you can see that this pillar of smoke is definitely coming from the area of that market, the little market town. You get within about
Couple
about
miles,
about a kilometer or
about a
so out from
kilometer.
it,
Okay.
and you're able to get to a good vantage point where you can actually see down to where it's at. And you put your binocs up to your eyes, and you see that um, just outside of that market town is you see the Imperial vehicle that had come to your home. It's on its side, off the side of the track, and that's what's burning.
Oh,
And there seems to be um, it seems to be like there's a firefight going on. You see a couple of it's from this distance is hard to tell individuals, but there's a couple of individuals that are behind that burning speeder that are firing into the town, and there's a couple of individuals in the town firing back.
can I tell who's winning
Oh,
this
well,
firefight?
not
Oh,
really.
no. um, Heish is kind of pleased that half track is on its side.
hmm hmm
Can I see where I suppose that our neighbors stall kiosk could possibly be from where I'm at, or through the smoke?
Yeah.
Anybody
The
there?
way this little settlement is set up, basically around the outer perimeter of it are the actual Quikrete buildings that have been set up.
Mhm.
A lot of them are just basic warehouses. There's a little there's a little constable's office there, which for yourself. There's a couple of cells in there. You've seen people take it in there like thieves and such. Occasionally, a drunk gets taken in there to sleep it off. Right next to it is the building that's the cantina.
Mm.
It's just basically a simple bar. It's got 4 or 5 tables in there, and a bar with mostly local vintages, if you will. There's a couple of people who brew beer in the area, and there's some more harder stuff that you can get in there. Generally, the open area in front, in like the center of all these, is where the stalls and such are. You can see the stalls, but you don't see anybody moving around in the stalls. There's a couple of places you can see looks like the produce might have been tipped over as if someone was getting out of the way quickly, but you really can't see anybody. If there's anyone that was there before, they're taking shelter.
Heish will find that to be a little comforting. He's doing this while sitting on the bike. But yeah, he'll go back home a little bit quicker than probably.
Well,
should,
as you're heading back, I want you both to make me a perception test.
Oh shit.
2? Okay.
Not paying attention.
Just straight perception.
Yeah, just straight perception.
Ah. 17.
Nice.
Okay, beautiful. You're going to hear it first then. But it actually isn't really a surprise to you. Okay. So, let me assign you don't recognize. So while you're off, what I just sent to you there, Tendrick, is what you heard basically. So I'll just sort of narrate this part there. As right after Heish left, you turn on your scanner, and it doesn't take you very long to pick up comm chatter. talking about apparently there is a firefight at Wu-Tang with possible rebels. The general what you generally get the idea of is that they were ambushed coming into the settlement, and they blew up their transport, and they're pinned down, and they've called for backup. The response you hear for the backup is not. It doesn't sound like you normally hear on the scanner. Usually the local scanners comms are pretty crackly, and most because they're old and they're mostly fairly short range. They're using repeaters and such. This comes through very, very clearly. And the response is Alpha 3 and 5 responding. ETA 5 minutes. And shortly after that, that was very, very crisp and clear. Shortly after that, you hear a very high-pitched buzzing whine that you hear. And as you look around for it, trying to find it, you realize it's echoing off the side outside the building in front of you there. And as you look up, you see a pair of contrails coming from high above, and that's where that whine's coming from, as they resolve themselves into a pair of TIE fighters they're streaking toward the area where the smoke is. So, hey, you don't actually hear that noise on the speeder you're on the swoop, because of the swoop's its engine itself. You don't notice them until they basically shoot past you above you.
Oh, because I hear they going on.
Yeah, well, you hear almost like the sonic boom of their passing. They're going right at about the speed of sound when they go over you.
I kick it down.
Okay, so you can get up faster.
Yep, we're coming in hot.
You hear Tendrick. You hear over that scanner comm chatter saying one bogey on the track below. 3 is going to investigate. And hey, you notice one of the TIE fighters peels off and starts circling back. You can see the TIE fighter, when it's still going on, actually starts dipping down, and you actually see the green glow of Starship blasters firing down at that settlement. Obviously, this isn't the kind of weaponry that you're going to fire at an individual.
Yeah, those people.
This is going to take out entire buildings.
Yeah, if they're strafing it, then yeah. Do I see a third TIE coming after me, or?
Well, that one TIE that peeled off, circling around, it turns and starts as angling towards you. So I need what is your perception dice?
I have 2 die in perception.
2 die in perception. All right. So in that case, you will actually, let me see, we're actually tied, so roll them.
Roll all 3. Okay.
Yep. Your perception dice.
11.
All right. So you see him, this TIE fighter, angling in as if it's possibly going to go in for a run on you. But you're able to notice it before he could actually start firing on you. So what are you going to do? Are you going to try to take evasive action? Are you going to, because you're probably about, at this point, about 1 kilometer from home.
Oh shit. I'm kind of guilty by association here, just by even being an observer. Heish will actually kind of, I suppose, slow down and kind of like skid, and as he's coming, I'll actually wave, because in his logic is, why would a rebel stop and wave at a TIE fighter going overhead?
Okay. All right. Okay. So you stop and you basically wave at the guy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. For a moment, you are wondering if this pilot cares, because he's still coming straight at you.
Mm-hmm. So there's kind of like a
There's that moment of, is
butthole
he going to
clench.
fire on me? Yeah, or not? Let's see. Let me see.
Can I like? Can I give you character points to possibly like have a ditch nearby that I can duck into? Wink, wink.
Well, actually, there is drainage ditches on the side.
Okay.
But you see the TIE fighters. It's lined up on you, and it's literally it's like boom, boom of your heart beating, boom,
Mhm.
boom, as it gets closer and closer, and then it peels off and swoops around and starts heading back the way it came.
If he can, I because the TIE fighters
Yeah, there's
cockpit
solar panels.
window.
Yes.
His cockpit window. If he turns and actually I kind of see him, I'll kind of just go.
Yeah.
Kind of like a nonverbal thank you.
Yeah, you can see him looking at you as you turn, but he doesn't make any kind of like a wave or a salute or anything. It's almost like, yeah.
Right.
You even through the helmet, you almost get this dismissive feel from
and
him.
I'm getting back on the road and driving at a reasonable speed back home.
Okay. So yeah, you actually hear over the comm there, Tendrick, that Bogey does not appear to be a threat. Returning. Now you do hear as you're heading back, and it makes you worry. Hey, Haish, you can hear that whine going a little further off. Then you hear that stutter noise of this main guns firing off, and the impacts you can almost feel behind you. They're leveling this settlement. This isn't they're strafing it, and they're probably shooting every building there. So,
Tendrick is basically feeling the rumors of what he's been told come true at the moment.
yeah. So as Haish comes back into you see him coming up the track before he actually gets there. So yes, there's a difference. So
I know, right?
I need $5.99 to see if you guys can get off the planet now. And we'll put it in the Dropbox, see if you make it off or not.
That's eat it.
You asked.
EA Games.
So as you there is almost a somber feeling, because even though you haven't been trained yet, because you have a connection to the Force, you feel those deaths. That you are sure in your soul that people died back there. It's just it's sort of like almost like a gentle pressure around your heart. Now, Tendrick, did you have any dice and sense, or do you just have
just the one in control?
Just control. Okay, that's fine. You don't know for sure. Haish, you're not sure exactly if that may have been her or not. It's hard to say. But you do have sense, right? So roll your sense dice for me real quick.
Sense. Oh my god. 14.
All right. So as you pull up, Yane is getting the last of the things up the ramp. You see Tendrick and the droid getting the last of the tie downs and such that you guys have had this thing moored with, taken up. And Stas, who has been helping carry stuff as well, pauses, and you feel it too. H does. It's like, it feels almost like someone is staring at you from right behind your head, as if there's someone right behind you. It's so intense that you may actually even whirl around to see if someone's there.
I go for a swing,
But there's no one there.
then I catch air.
This presence, it's very, very, you almost get the feeling of someone saying, aha.
Yane, where are you?
And Stas says, we need to go now.
Yane. He's actually kind of like,
Yeah.
he's got his bag
Yeah.
and he's kind of like running through.
Yeah. She's at the ship, and she's like, come on.
Who's on the ship?
At the moment, Kendrick's on the ship. Yane was at the boarding ramp. Stas was out there next to her. She was carrying a few things up as well.
Kendrick would have been in there with Leith getting the Astro Gate stuff.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Yeah. It's all systems are go at this point. So
shit. Possible first dark side points of the campaign.
okay.
He walks up to Yane. Actually, he gives her a hug, or really like he squeezes her.
Mm-hmm.
And he just lets go, hand in the small of her back, just pushes her up the plank. He takes the shit from Stas. He goes up the ramp, and he comes back down, and he says, "You're staying here."
Okay. She sort of nods. It's probably a good idea, because it'll be easier for him to sense all three of us together than it will just the two of you. I'll be a distraction. And you see, and she just turns and walks over to the swoop, gets on it, looks back at you, and says, "May the force be with you." Fires it up and heads off. No dark side point, by the way. That's not bad enough.
Okay. If she resisted, I was gonna push her and then like
No, you see a
Close the
look in
door
her
behind her.
eye. She has when you walk over to her, she has a resignation, almost like she was about to say it herself. And she heads off down the track. So are you going to be piloting?
Yeah. If I have a remote start for this thing to like start to lift off and close the gangplank, I'll be walking up as it closes.
Okay.
And making
Leith can do a basic takeoff for you.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then
he's not a really good pilot.
Okay.
But he can at least get it to lift off. So yeah, he starts
Leith
the process.
can basically do what Chewie does for Han and just take over for a little bit.
Oh.
Well, no, Chewie's a lot better of a pilot than Han, believe it or not.
Yeah,
believe it or not. So, stats wise, he's the better pilot. I've looked at the stats for that. But no, he so as you guys lift off, that feeling that you're being stared at, just you can't shake it. Someone knows where you are.
As soon as I get to the cockpit, I kind of shoo everyone else out.
Okay.
Does our cockpit have a door?
You'll actually the cockpit itself, it actually takes two people to fully pilot. You have to have a pilot and a co-pilot. The co-pilot is more deals with stuff like the power management, making sure the engines and such are properly getting power and such. So you'll have to have at least one other person there with you.
Well, Leith doesn't count as a person. He can stay.
Okay. So he's gonna do power management for you then and stuff. Okay. So he plugs into the nav computer and
Yeah,
Yes, it has a door.
he'll close the door. If he can, he will lock it, and
Okay.
he'll sit down in the cockpit, the captain, excuse me, the pilot's chair, and he'll just growl, "Come and get me," as we leave.
Okay. It's pretty routine. Not to have to roll anything to get to take off and get out of the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
But you angle it up, and as you transition from the day, because it's toward the evening, but it's not quite sunset yet. As you get higher up, you can see the dark, greasy smudge of smoke where that one settlement used to be. You also see below you a column of about a dozen vehicles, actually heading down the track toward where your home used to be. You can't tell from this height. You can't tell what vehicles specifically they are, but as you get high enough, you do see a couple of them actually stop there, and you see the little small pinpoints of possible people getting out and moving in, possibly in a tactical formation. It's hard to say, but they're definitely checking out where you were at the time. And both of you feel more than hear a voice in your head saying, "Take care and get out of here as fast as you can." But as you go that transition from the blue, where the sky starts getting darker, the dark of space starts actually fading in around your ship. The feel of the atmosphere begins to get less and less, and this is probably the first time you've actually flown this ship into space, I'm willing to bet. But you actually
no, sorry, go for it.
You actually feel the gravitics kick in that give you basically artificial gravity on the ship and compensates for the inertia. Because at the moment you've been sort of pushed back in your seat by the liftoff to an extent, but once you get to a certain point, that goes away because inertial dampeners kick in, and then you also feel the ship leap underneath you and actually start going that speed that an actual starship goes at. Leith looks over at you and says, "There's something on the sensors, Captain."
Yeah, pull him up and unlock the door.
Okay. He unlocks the door. He pulls up and shows you on your plot that there are two ships that are in orbit. He said the readout's coming in. He does. You see the plug rotate a few times, and there's some lights that begin blinking on the side of his head, and it finally pulls up that these are Imperial Customs frigates.
Mm.
They're not Star Destroyers, but they're still capital ships.
Haste just nods. Are they hailing us? Are we close enough?
It says they're just not coming up around the planet's terminator at the moment. But we are being scanned now, sir.
Let them do their scan.
And then a light starts blinking on your console that says you're being hailed.
I pulled them up on the view screen.
Okay.
My hood is up.
That's fine. It says you're the figure you see on your screen is a person in an Imperial Navy uniform. It's that gray color uniform with the hat. His insignia says that he's a warrant officer. And he says, your ship's registration is woefully out of date.
Yeah, we're. It's been a long time since this bird has left Dantooine. We're going to visit some relatives on Ord Mantell.
Okay. With that, then this is sort of the fun part of this, because of the way persuasion and such also works.
Which is a blatant fucking lie too.
I know.
Mm.
So what we need to do now is we need to get you to do a persuasion check real quick, which the way persuasion works, persuasion is under, find it again. I believe
Perception?
it is, I think it's under perception. Yes.
All right. right.
So
shit.
roll me a persuasion on your perception. He has to roll his
Um,
own perception to see if he thinks you're lying or not.
ooh, 10. Shit.
Okay. He you see him look at you and he sort of tilts his head a little bit. He says, Ord Mantell, huh?
That's last we were told my aunt, my mother's sister, was living there.
Mhm. Well, we're gonna have we're gonna have a shuttle come over to you and inspect you because your as I said, your registration is very much out of date. At that, you see Yane come bursting up into the cockpit,
Mm.
and she leans over your shoulder. She says,
Hi,
"Warrant
Mom.
officer, yes." And he says, "Yes, ma'am." And she just says one word. She says, "Amidala." And he stops and looks, and he taps on his on something in front of him. He says, "That's not been used in quite some time, ma'am." She says, "But it is still legitimate, yes?" He says, "Technically, yes." And she says, "Follow the orders." He nods. He says, "Yes, ma'am. You're free to go." And he clicks off.
Amidala.
Mhm.
Not the Queen's household. I'm looking over.
He looks at you and says, "My history may have just saved your butts, boys."
I
She turns and goes and walks back into the into the back.
I could have flashed him my ass and we would have gotten out of here. He doesn't say that loud. I hope he doesn't say that loud enough for her to hear.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
Meanwhile,
we'll cut to a scene while you guys are basically plotting your astrogation down the planet.
I'll have called Tendrick in at this point.
We'll see this. We see a scene. This is a cutaway scene from you guys for a moment. We see a scene of the waving grass once again. On the distance, we see that tall stack of black, greasy smoke. The top is now reached the jet stream, so the top is sort of sheared off. The cloud being dissipated off in the distance. At about eye level, we see the tops of this grass along the track. We come to a gap in that grass, and we see that swoop off to the side. It's parked, and the from behind it, we see Stas step out, lightsaber in hand. We see a shadow as we hear the rumble of a shuttle. The shuttle comes and lands right in the middle of the track. The gangplank comes down, and a tall man dressed in black. He has the hard hard angular face of an aristocrat from Coruscant. At least in the parts that are flesh. The right side of his face, the right eye up to his forehead, is a mask of some kind of metal that gleams in the sunlight. The eye itself replaced with the dull red glow of a prosthetic. From his shoulders hangs the traditional cape of nobility that the Empire and the Republic has seen as a recognition of nobility. The blue with the gold edging, bit of embroidery along the edges, a gold chain clasping at the front, the clothing underneath just a black. He steps as his foot hits the ground of Dantooine. He looks up and says, "Where are the others?" I thought we'd have a fun reunion. And Stas says, "You'll never get them." He says, "Oh, yes, I will." They were on the Naboo freighter, I assume, the one that the handmaiden owned. And Stas just sort of looks at him, and she says, "You'll not get any information out of me." He says, "That's okay. I already know this. Um, well, I of course must offer you the opportunity to come in and to turn yourself over to the Knights the Knights of the Empire." And Stas's eyes narrow, and she says, "That name is a farce." He sort of giggles a bit, says, "But it's the truth now, dear." And he takes a couple steps forward and says, "Well, I've offered you the time to come in, so will you come in, or will you continue to resist?" And she said, "I will resist to my dying breath." He says, "As you wish." And he ignites a lightsaber, that the blood red lightsaber. She ignites hers, the actinic blue, and the two of them run to clash together. There's a quick flurry of blows. Stas actually shows she has quite the skill with the lightsaber, but this other figure matches her blow for blow. Almost seems to be enjoying the sparring. She her face is a picture of serenity. His face has a rictus of joy. The feel of the predator on the hunt. Um, she attempts to throw him off with a telekinetic push. He dodges. He's able to reach out and grab her hand as she's about to swing at him with a lightsaber and throws her off her balance. And that blade comes down and, with barely a hesitation, cuts through her. She pauses for a moment as her eyes blink, as her body realizes that the trauma has been caused to her, and she falls to the ground. Breathes her last. There's no blood, for lightsabers cauterize all wounds. But as her body hits the ground and she looks up, she can see the faint dissipating contrail that the Gilded Lady left as it left atmosphere. And Haysh and Tendrick both get this thought of run in their mind. And then you both feel her being gone. This sort of just an absence of her. So
Hayes kind of blurts out in the cockpit, and there goes another one.
So as you guys transition to hyperspace, and the stars stretch out to the lines of the world beyond, or the universe beyond, things sort of seem, and I would like to, I'll go with Haysh first. I like his thoughts on what are his inner thoughts about leaving home. How is he feeling about this trip? What is his thoughts at the moment?
Hayes, after dialing in, the ship just kind of sits back in his chair and relaxes, lets his shoulders slack, and kind of reflects on the events of the morning. He was completely content with being a farm boy on a garden world for the rest of his life, and connect using what his meager force skills he has to connect with his plants, because they're the things that give him the most joy, besides his footwork and becoming a better swordsman. This morning was not something that he enjoyed. Tending to his garden in the morning and having as far as he is aware, a Jedi Knight come in and essentially turn his world upside down, because he had, though his memories are a little fuzzy from the Jedi Temple. He more or less remembers it kind of the way an adult remembers going to daycare as a child, and being taught his ABCs and his basic maths, and he very much chafes at being called Jedi or being addressed as a youngling because he's not a child anymore, which may be a little bit more petulant than he honestly feels. A little embarrassed to admit it. He felt those deaths more potently than he is comfortable with, and that's why he hugged Yane a little bit tighter than he would normally have. There's clearly a fear of losing her and what the Jedi would consider an unhealthy attachment. And how callously and how casually he just turned on this Jedi Knight that he didn't know, and without a second thought, he would have ran her through. But instead of running her through, he said, "I'm leaving you here." And he's just dwelling on that, like, is that the young man I want to be? And he just he tries to like drop into maybe a light meditative trance while the hyperspace void is going by him.
Okay. So what are Tendrick's thoughts at this point, leaving his home?
As Tendrick said before, he deals in machines, not people. People are too messy. He'd rather deal with his machines and his droids. Oh God, today was a day. What he thought was just going to be reaming out some stupid owner of a speeder turned into a life-altering event. He's not as in tune with the Force as, Stas was or even Hayes is, but in the back of his mind, he says, this is going to be a thing for the books. As for actually leaving home, I mean, they have Yanni with them. He didn't hear about the whole, her bloodline thing because he actually wasn't in the cockpit when that particular conversation went down. So he's honestly still ignorant of her history. But I guess he's going to take it kind of blasé, like, well, wherever we're going, machines are going to break down. So I still got a job to do.
Okay.
I can't sit here and think about the what ifs. I have Yanni, I have Hayes, I have my machines. Let's see what the hell happens.
So as you're sitting there thinking about that, and you see Yanni come back from the cockpit after she ran up there. And she comes and she sits down. There's the area that's right behind the cockpit is like a communal area of the yacht. There's an area that has a table off to one side with sort of couches around it. There's a little area that's a little area called an auto chef that's sort of like a little kitchenette off to one side, and then a few places to sort of sit with access to, like, holovids and sort of an entertainment area, if you will. And she sits down, and she reaches over and pulls out an area that actually, you remember as a child, she used to sit at quite a bit. It's almost like it's her seat, if you will. And she reaches into a slot next to the seat and she pulls out a pad. And she starts tapping it and she looks at something. And she said, "I was so young here." And she looks up at Tendrick and she says, "Younger than you are now." And She says, there's some things I need to get your brother. There's some things we need to talk about. The ship can fly itself for a bit, I'm sure.
Which, in true sibling style, Tindrick would just kind of lean back in the chair. Hey,
Oh my god. Yes. You fucking yell across the ship. Yes. Thank you. Thank
get
you.
your ass back here.
So, hey, she's kind of like jolted out of his meditative trance, like, all right. And he just kind of leans over to leave.
I have it, sir. If anything occurs, I'll summon you.
Holler. He gets up and he actually hangs his cloak on the back of the chair, so his whole face and blindfold and the hair is actually visible. He comes down. He goes, "What broke this time?" And he says it with a kind of like a praxic smile on his face, and just kind of like he stabs Tindrick with his elbow on the shoulder. That's more a dig to him than anything. I was like, "What broke?"
So you see Yanni sitting there in the place that she sat when you were much younger, when you guys actually lived in the ship.
He'll actually pause
Mhm.
and like he'll take in, and obviously he'll be kind of just fucked across like the past decade of his life.
So, yeah. She's sitting there, she's holding a pad in her hand, looking down at something. And she says, it's time, especially you, Hay, since you had to actually hear the what I told that young officer. It's time you know something.
Yeah, what's
And she taps some things on a pad, and there's a view monitor behind her that pops up. And she shows you this picture. It pops up. And the lady on the left, I mean, you've seen vids of her before. That was she was once a queen of Naboo and a senator from Naboo. And she says, I was younger than you are now here. And she points to the lady to the right, the one who's looking at the queen. And she says, that was me. That was me so many years ago. She said, I was a handmaiden to the Queen of Naboo. That's how I knew the code. And what the code means was that this was a diplomatic vessel and that it was not to be fired upon, and it was carrying sensitive information. Yes, it was a lie. Well, I consider the two of you sensitive information. And it'll get us out of the system, but it's possible that once they dig deeper into that, it will bring up questions, which means this ship may be, well, she's been your home for most of your life, but she may become a liability to you.
He just blurts out, I could rename her, rewrite her registration, and
it's possible to do that, but I'm not sure. And between you and Tindrick, you might be able to do that.
Well, yeah.
But the registrations are they're very sensitive, and them being altered is easy to tell. Of course, that's intentional. So basically, it's the equivalent of you can make yourself your own license plate, but to someone who knows what we're looking for, it's not going to look right. That's sort of how that goes. But there are ways of getting around that and getting your registry changed. And I'm sure there are people at Ord Mantell that possibly deal in those kinds of things. She gets up and walks over to one of the stations there and starts keying in some codes. And then something happens there that you've not seen happen before. The panel behind the viewer folds back, and a scanner comes out, and she looks at it, and it scans her face. And you hear a chirp and a green light come on. And she says, "This may help." she hits a couple of keys in your guys' comms chirp. It shows that you currently have a sum of 10,000 credits in an account based off of your comm system. Basically, but that's how you pay for things, is use your comms to do so. And she said, yeah, basically,
Essentially, a goddamn
it's
smartphone.
basically a smartphone. Yeah. Yeah, I think when this stuff was originally written, smartphones were even a thing yet.
Yeah. And
So now it's like, okay. And she says there's a few accounts I still have access to, apparently. But boys, I think this is more dangerous than you may be thinking, maybe realizing. I've kept you sheltered and protected on Dantooine from the bigger galaxy as best I could, mostly as a favor, to your master, Haish, specifically. Though she wasn't supposed to know her family, she was a cousin of mine, and we were able to visit with each other occasionally. In her day, the days before days before the Empire, in the good days, and she wanted to stay with you, but she was afraid that with the way the Jedi were being hunted at that time, if she did, she would become a beacon, and they would find you, the two of you, along with her, and she just could not. She could not reconcile putting you in that danger. Not that she thought you would be killed, but she thought you'd be bent, that you would be warped and molded into servants of the Emperor.
well, that's he was about to say something, but it doesn't repair.
He is a very cagey person. I've not seen him since the days of the Clone Wars, but I was in his presence many, many times. And he is a man who has a certain gravitas to him. When he says things, they seem reasonable, even if they're not. I'm sure he's taught that to some of these he has hunting Jedi. So if you do encounter his minions and they do try to convince you to come join them, be wary. Now, I'll not say much better about the Jedi. I personally don't think they are, well, I don't think they were as pure as they claimed to be. There were rumors that they would kidnap young children, which you two were taken from your families at very young ages. We don't know that you were taken willingly or that your families were even allowed to visit you, which I don't believe they were.
I don't remember anyone coming. He kind of just looks over at Dindrik.
No, neither of you had anyone come visit you. You didn't even get communications from your family. It was as if you didn't exist to them anymore. So I'm not sure that I necessarily want you to seek out the Jedi who are left, because I think they could be very dangerous. I think you boys should find a safe place and somewhere else in the galaxy, and I'll help you do that. We just hide, stay out of the eye of what's going on, and just fade into the background. So don't attract attention.
So you're coming with us, or are you holing up somewhere?
Of course I'm coming with you. Where else would I go?
Well, as far as I'm aware, those turbo tanks, their armor that was coming up the road probably leveled the house.
Mm-hmm. So I have nowhere to go back to. from what I understand, Naboo is not what it was when I was living there anymore,
Even in the country.
even in the country.
Mm.
It's, well, I've had very, very few communication with those that I used to serve with. Um, Rabe was probably one of the ones that I've spoken with the most, and she says that that Naboo has become, well, it is not safe to speak ill of Palpatine on that planet anywhere anymore. That those who would even utter a derisive comment about the past disappear. And though the appearance is of a as in a way as it was, people live with a fear from day to day that if they speak the wrong words, are seen with the wrong people, seen doing the wrong thing, or look at the wrong thing on the holonet, that they may disappear.
Well, isn't Onderon similar in climate and temperance? We could leave you there. He kind of just like
Why would you want
ventures
to leave me?
well, I don't, but having a former handmaiden to the royal family of Naboo on a ship that used to belong to the royal family of Naboo in a serving in a diplomatic fashion might attract too much attention. We're very popular.
Well, that's why we have to go to Ord Mantell and speak to his friends.
Mm.
As you mentioned, changing the registry is probably the first thing that we need to do. And possibly getting the three of us papers to identify us as other than we are. I still have a few people I can speak with. So we were trained in not just in courtly protocol and beauty, but in espionage and in personal combat as well. So those exercises I do each morning aren't just dancing.
I'm aware.
So I've kept up on I may have lost a half a step, but she sort of looks and grins at Haish. I can still run rings around you though.
Oh, you old lady. I see. I see you.
Well, you know, there's been a few times where you've tried to, because she's taught you a bit of that too, but she still holds her own when you guys spar. So
Yep. He just smirks. Well, I think we might have to split up at least some point.
we may,
I'm
but
dreading that.
Tendrick, she looks over at you. She says, "You may have to do some. Well, there are some things you might be able to trade. Actually, might be useful. Do you still have those decommissioned droids back in the cargo hold?"
Should.
Okay.
I didn't touch them.
Maybe you want to see if you can get some of those up and running. Some of those could be used as bargaining chips, possibly even to throw off the scent, if you will. So, um, so if you want to put some of those, want to work on those, and we possibly, once we get there, we can do some trading, gentlemen. So.
Okay.
She sits back down again in that one spot, looks at that pad again, and she thinks again, I was so young. The thought comes out as her saying it. So And you see her sort of lean back in the chair, and in a few moments, she just sort of dozes off,
Ah,
as if the maybe this she's been holding that stress in all day, and they finally just cut up to her, and it was just time to go to sleep. So, what are your intentions, men?
um,
Says the emperor of the game.
says the Emperor. Yep. Hayes just shoots a look to his brother and says, "Well, I suppose we keep it down while she naps. I will be in the cockpit. I'll send Leith down if you need him. Eh?
I'm gonna be in the back looking for those droid parts.
Yeah, I'll send him down." He just kind of like half hesitated and like, you'll need another pair of hands. And he'll get up there.
Yeah. You know, the trip toward Mantella is going to take at least 2 days. So he'll be in hyperspace the entire time. So
he will, for the next 2 days, sleep, meditate, I say tend. He will fuss over his quickly transplanted plants, Hayes is kind of a plant dad. We'll put it that way. He'll talk to his plants very sweetly, very kindly, when he's not doing that, he's practicing his footwork and his lightsaber drills. If Yane has had a drone sparring partner in her possession, he'll probably be using one or more of those.
Okay.
Hayes likes practicing against multiple opponents. And that back cargo area he feels is big enough for him to be a little bit more aggressive.
So yeah, the cargo area is definitely big enough for that. It's the same area that, of course, Tendrick's going to be back in with the droids. The droids parts that you have back there, by the way, there are 3 power droids, gonk droids, as they're commonly called. They're the walking boxes, but they're actually droids they're very valuable because they're basically walking power supplies. They're used by all kinds of people who need access to power when they're away from the actual grid. They need a little bit of work here and there to get them back up and running order. There are 2 other droids that are basically labor droids. They're load lifters. They're not really anything fancy, but one of the droids, it got brought into you and dropped off, and the owner never heard from him again. They basically asked you if you could possibly repair it and restore its memory, but you've never had a chance to really mess with it much. It's an old protocol droid. And as you're looking at it, you get the feeling that it's probably the easiest one to get back online. Not fully repaired, but back online at least.
Want me to make a check for that, or just?
Yeah, if you want to do a droid repair check.
How many cucumbers do I have? They're like ready to harvest, I suppose.
Half a dozen.
Half a dozen. Tomatoes, lettuce.
Okay.
Probably make up
probably
a couple
about
salads.
About the same, yeah. So
okay.
Yeah, you probably would have actually harvested those and put them up in the fresher before you actually transferred the plants, because it'd be easier to transport them that way.
Right.
Okay.
So we'll say like a half a dozen young plants they're not ready to harvest yet.
Yep.
20.
Okay. It takes you a couple of hours tinkering, but you're able to get it basically the motivators and such back online. You're able to get the central processor back, powered back up again, and it goes through a boot up process. It takes probably about a half an hour once you get to that point. Eventually, its photoreceptors light up, and it looks up at you and says, my designation is CXR4, sir. Where am I?
Am I in earshot while this charm?
Oh yeah, yeah. You'd have been in this. You've been in the same.
Am I in the same room?
Yeah, probably in the same. And yeah, because it's back in the bay.
CRX4. I'll just stand. You are aboard the Jade Typhoon. R4.
Jade Typhoon. It sort of tilts its head a bit. Says, "That's not my registry of Imperial craft."
Oh my god. Oh shit.
Am I on
The
extended duty?
lightsaber comes out.
Mhm.
Wait, hang on. Wait, let me just stop.
Or detached? Am I on detached duty?
Does it have Imperial markings?
Yeah. Once you actually get down there and actually you're able to pop off the there's like a cover on the head. You pop it off, and it actually has the Imperial serial number. CRX4 is part of the Imperial serial number.
Before I lose my shit, did Tindruk? This is probably a question for Mike. Did Tindruk tell me it's an Imperial property droid?
Would he have known before right now?
It was common for you to have those brought to you. A lot of times they got bought surplus and reprogrammed.
This was the one that got dropped off, like when we first arrived. The owner never returned.
Well,
Yeah,
what?
it's an older style droid.
That one?
Yes.
No, I don't. Okay. All right. Excuse me. He was about to act on this thing out of fear.
Yeah, at this moment, it's higher functions are active, but you haven't actually basically restored power to the body yet. So
I also would have kept it
can't-
off of the. I also would have kept it off the data link so far too.
okay.
So he is effectively offline.
Offline, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he only has local processing power, and he tilts his head up for moments. Says, "I've been offline for eight standard years."
That long. I kind of shoot a look to Tindruk. How long has he been with us? It been with us?
About 3 years.
Like I said, probably 3.
Well, as far as I'm aware, Tindruk is now your owner. I am captain of this ship.
Do you have a bona fide bill of sale by chance, Mr. Tindruk?
He just kind of chuckled for a second. No, you were dropped
Shit.
off.
Hmm.
You were dropped off, asked to be repaired, and your owner never returned.
Okay. Now, one of the things you do know, by the way, Tendrick, is, and you probably have a few of these in your possession, is you can actually override any of that kind of stuff with a restraining bolt, which is basically just basically it's it is a separate processor that attaches to the central processor of a droid and allows you to override it at any time. So you definitely attach one of those to it, no problem. And it also allows you to reprogram them. It also allows you to go through the memory.
Well, when I say I don't have the bill of sale, what does it do?
It just looks at you and says that I'm not allowed to convey any information to you, sir, until that is produced.
Okay. Tindrick would turn it back off or shut it back down,
Okay.
and then I'll use that bolt to at least override the ownership part.
Okay.
I don't want to reprogram it yet.
Yeah, you're able to get into that. You're able to pull it up on your pad once you attach it. You're able to pull up the registry information for it and change that in the system, no problem. It's actually really easy to do. Technically, it's not legal but it's sort of like you're basically going in and you're rooting a phone, jailbreaking the phone basically. So almost everybody knows how to do them, especially with the older droids. This is an older droid, so
Well, this got repos, so I'm the repo man. We'll just go with
yeah, basically. You notice that this thing has a lot of data stored in its central matrix. A lot of apparently this thing was apparently an Imperial Customs droid. It's got a lot of Imperial Customs protocols and codes and information in it.
Anything redacted, or is it all kind of just
Oh no, nothing in the droid is
sensitive
redacted.
knowledge?
This is the kind of stuff you based on what you're able to look through it and see. This thing was probably a droid that was assigned probably to the customs office there in Dantooine. It's old enough to have been surplused out to them, but it's what they would have used for stuff like, say, if someone come in that had a had diplomatic codes. This is the droid that would process those diplomatic codes and all that stuff in its database to compare it to and such. I said it's 8 years old, but some of those codes might be useful to somebody, or even useful to you guys.
Where did it say where its original designation was?
Where it originally was first brought online.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was originally it was from the it was originally from a place called shoot, where's it at? I have to look it up real quick. It is originally from the region of the Bespin system, you think?
Or the gas planet.
Yeah, well, the system, the gas planet was like Bespin 5. But that system actually had was at one point a very prominent trade, a prominent trade hub in the early part, and well, back before the what you call it, the Clone Wars.
Okay.
So because Bespin is Bespin is a major exporter of something called Tabani gas.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, I'll say to Tindrick, I'll be sitting probably on a crate nearby, just watching him do his thing as I'm resting. What do we have in there? Or like in the droid is what he's meaning.
Customs and diplomatic codes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Old, but still.
See what we can rip out of that thing.
Oh, he's already in the midst of copying everything over.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
a good
Well,
thing.
then, I mean,
it'll take some
Step ahead
time
of
for it
me.
to actually be downloaded. But yeah, you can get most of those codes and stuff downloaded into your database there on the ship.
Is Yanni currently up?
No, this is just a couple hours right after she laid down.
Okay.
Yeah. He was actually, Heish was just about to go and check on her.
Okay.
Is she
If she
sleeping
gets up
in her
on-
chair and we haven't been...
Yeah, she just sort of kicked back in her chair sleeping. As you come in, she stirs and opens her eyes. She says, "I'm sorry about that. I must have dozed off."
No,
She stretches and sits up.
you are resting and sleeping beautifully. Tindrick has an Imperial Customs droid that he is dissecting for us right now.
Oh, well, that could be useful.
You might have to help him with that. That is not my... As I click my lightsaber on my belt, that's...
Okay. She gets up and stretches, and she says, I'll go to the fresh room. Be right back there then." So she goes and freshers the bathroom, basically. She comes back to the where you're back in the cargo bay there, and she sees you download the information from the droid and says, "Hey, said that you had some customs codes."
Yep. If they're still in the middle of download, I'll hand her back my pad while it's in the midst of downloading.
She looks at a few of the things and pops open a couple of the files that I've already downloaded. She says, "Oh, yeah, these are definitely useful. These could definitely, yeah." She hands it back to you and says, "This could, I mean, obviously you can definitely use them, but those copies of those, if put in the right hands, can make you a pretty good bit of money." There's a slicer. Well, that's what he calls himself at Ord Mantell that I've heard about. His name is Tevis Dorlon. When we get in the system, you might want to contact him, and he might be able to. He'll probably do some trade with you for those codes.
As long as it keeps us alive, that's all I care about right now.
Yep. I could definitely understand that.
Money I can pick up wherever.
Yeah, but these sometimes favors are better than money.
Yeah.
So I know you don't like dealing with organics much, Kendrick, but
yeah, well,
those skills of yours can be parlayed into more influence than you can probably imagine.
Yeah, that's how I saved Hace's life back there on the farm.
Oh yes. It says here, she looks at this droid was recently brought online in the Bespin system, the moon Drudona. It's back if I recall, back when I was active, if you will, that was an imperial listening post. Well, it was a Republic listening post at the time. Bespin's a big mining system. So, and she pulls up a little readout, and she says, "Yeah, that." And she flashes it up to you and says, "Yeah, that's right there. Yeah, there's Bespin, and then Drudona was one of the moons. A guard was the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one does an Orin because it always passed to they had, well, every so often it had bad problems with the ring. It would have asteroid impacts and whatnot. But the system itself was, it's a great source of Tobani gas used in hyperdrives.
Yeah. Make sure we pick up some of that.
Mm-hmm.
How are we doing with supplies?
Food wise, you're stocked. You're probably going to have to pick up some fuel in Ord Mantell because you've not really felt the ship do much as an adult because it hasn't really flown. But there are times when it seems like almost like it hesitates a little bit, like just a real quick, like a little whoop. And that could be because of old fuel. So it might be worth actually purging the fuel tanks and getting a full refill when you get there. But you've not had enough experience with it operating, if that's just normal. Could be. So
hey, what do you say we fire this thing back up? I overrode the ownership on it, so it shouldn't fight.
Okay. All right. So you fire it back up again. Its photoreceptors pop back on again, and it looks up at you, says, "Oh, Master Tendrick, what can I do for you, sir?"
Good. Welcome aboard the ship, CXR4.
Yes, sir. What are my duties here?
I actually look over at Yanni. What should we have them do?
Interface with customs officials. And he looks over at her, looks at you, and says, "Oh, so we're a trading vessel."
Works for me.
Okay. All right, then I can assist you with interfacing with customs and ensuring that we have the correct permits and such on board for whatever we happen to be carrying. At the moment, he looks over and sees the other droids that you have in the hold and not much else. He says, "Apparently, we're hauling a small amount of scrap."
Yes, we're just getting
correct?
started. Well, actually, I'm hoping we're going to sell them as actual droids, but I guess if I can get them up as well as I got you up, so.
Oh, very well. So droids, we'll have to have them on the manifest as droids and not scrap. Be the first thing we have to make sure we do. Then we'll have to have their individual registration numbers on file as well. So when we're queried by Colorful Customs, we can transfer that information. And also, if there's any sensitive information being held in their data banks, obviously you'll have to declare myself being an Imperial customs droid, and he just starts
Going
dumping
on.
information.
Yeah, that's fine.
Uh,
He's doing what he loves.
yeah. So yeah, and you literally he
Tindrick will, like,
drones on
listen.
about.
Yeah.
Mhm. And so
Tindrick will, like,
it takes
listen
him
while he's going up the other one. So yeah.
it takes about 4 minutes for him to go through the full recitation of what all you have to do. He looks at you and says, "Where should I start, sir?"
I actually put him over to the what's it, Gaunt?
Gonk. They're called Gonk droids.
Gonk.
They're basically power droids.
Yeah.
So,
Power generators. Yeah.
Mhm.
We can start on those.
Mhm.
Everybody needs power.
Okay. He looks back at you and sort of tilts his head down and says, "I don't seem to have motivation, sir."
I thought I turned that on. That's my bad. Yeah. Tindrick will go ahead and are all of his limbs actually working, or is he like not have locomotion in general?
They're all attached. There's a couple of them that you have to go in and do some cleaning up on, and the knee joint is going to be problematic because it's misaligned. You'll probably have to get some replacement parts for that, but he can still limp once you get him actually powered back up again. Then once he stands up, he actually does a little sort of a limp slide of his foot. Think the old Igor, step slide. That's how he's basically he moves around at the moment. He goes over and you see him extend a data prod from one of his hands and interfaces with the Gonk droid, and he sits there for a few moments and he says. Comes back and says, "This one does not have a proper registration, sir. We'll have to put in for a proper registration at the next system. Its data core has been wiped." So,
Yeah, blank slates aren't a bad thing.
Okay. So he basically goes through and does that for you for the ones. One of the load lifters, he said this data core is missing, which you sort of knew. It's going to need a new one. He said those can be purchased, at the next port as well if need be. And basically, so you're going to spend the rest of that sort of afternoon or so, as you want to call it, going through that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Rolling forward, the rest of the 2 days pass, and you find yourselves coming up to the Ord Mantell system and dropping out of hyperspace.
And Min May is on the radio.
Mm-hmm. It takes a moment for the upload to actually start hitting, and yes, the local music Holobox channel has played in the cockpit, of course. They played some of her stuff. There's also some data downloads that's coming in for you guys to look at. Local the new basically new HoloNet dramas, new episodes of those are downloaded, and of course the news feed. One of the things pops up on your news feed that, and it is a picture. It's a picture of a face that you know that you've recently met. A picture of Stas. It is listed that she was apparently the leader of a rebel cell on Dantooine that was recently taken out by Imperial forces. So apparently someone's gotten here before you have. And that's when your board starts beeping as a hail comes in.
Haish will wake up to that beeping, skim that article on Stas, groan, and put his cowl up, and pull up whatever that hail is on the view screen.
Okay. It pops up, and you see a figure, very well dressed. Part of his face, though, is covered by a metallic shield or prosthetic. And he said, "Good lady, it took you long enough to get here." And on that cliffhanger, we'll end the session. This is Star Wars. Sessions should
course.
always end on a cliffhanger.
I know,
So
right?
we shall discover what this figure is, who he is, what his interest is in the Gilded Lady and its occupants in the next session. Until then, may the force be with you and good night. So.